G'day friends and fans, welcome to Dave Talks Stuff Ukraine War Update for the 22nd of May 2026. Before I begin, if you have to ask what side I'm on, it's clear I'm not on your side, right? And why are you here then, if you're only seeking validation? Because I'm Red Pill. Red Pill reports the truth. And if you don't like the truth, tell your side to clean up its act. And don't come at me for bringing your drama to my show, because my show is not about the drama, it's about the facts. And people come here for facts. And the fact is, Ukraine is engaged in very seriously confusing. They are befuddled. They don't know what to do, so they're acting out. They're trying to create paranoia and fear. So they're now engaged in this security operation on the Belarusian border to try and trigger a wider war. And then, just like they did in 2014 and 2016 and 2022, try to create war. It worked in 2022 after 6 weeks after they shelled Donetsk. Russia invaded because Ukraine won't be held accountable for its actions by Europe. Why? Because they're acting on behalf of Europe. And that does, just because I'm in the West does not mean I should automatically support everything the liberal establishment does. After all you liberals out there, you will never support anything Trump does. So, yeah. And you don't have two shits to give about Ukraine. You just want something to gnash your teeth on so you can parade around like a rooster that just got two hens. Alright, so we have the dumbassery of a security operation here. Yeah, which just telling the whole world you're engaged in a security operation is like, yeah, you're not. You're engaged in paranoid delusions. Everyone has security operations on their border and should always have security operations on your border. But Ukraine, nah, bro, we hire the cigarette smugglers to make drones for us. What could go wrong? Firepoint. All right, so we have operations by the Russians in Sumy, Kharkiv. The Ukrainians were claiming in Ukraine Pravda of a ongoing security operation to clear Kupiansk of enemy forces. It's the only one who's announcing this, by the way. Others just, it's the usual garbage. Russia's actually advanced a little bit here, but that's about it. And here as well, just so you know, that's actually reported by other Ukrainian sites as well. Seems I have to tell some people out there which sites I use. No, if you're too lazy, right, I give you analysis of what's going on. And so if you have to question everything, you're not here for my analysis, you're here to create drama. And I'm not engaging rage bait. Alright, so we have ongoing operations here in Lyman. They're pretty much always going to be in the same place until they're not. Remember, the Russians shift operations, but when they have constant ongoing operations, that's what's commonly referred to as the killing cauldron. That is, they've set up good positions, they're not going to move, and the Ukrainians keep coming to them. So they're not going to advance in Lyman until they're satisfied in other areas. And it also is partly because they did get well ahead of other lines. And so while the lines catch up to them, particularly here in Kraina Luka, as you saw yesterday, the Russians made a huge advance. They'd overrun the Ukrainian positions along this point. They've overrun Ukrainian positions along this line. And right now they're consolidating lines, clearing out mines and infiltrators along the Donsk. They are, of course, headed to circumvent, and there's ongoing operations in here as well to actually cut off linemen, not just this road, but in this forested area. See, to cut off, to prepare for a siege of Slavsk, they need to cut off all these other towns on the front line to basically control the Donsk all the way upriver and cut all this off. And then begin operations, probably to overrun linemen, cut through here, take out this, come round here, cutting off this road, set up probably out on this side of the river, shell Radstock, set up here and here to shell Miskova. And yeah, it's going to be a long, complex operation. Just remember, this ain't 1945 where Russia has 20 million to spare, and what is it, million tons of goods a day or something coming from the US. No, they have, yeah. See, this is the thing about World War II that even Russia doesn't want to recognise, although US-Russian partnership is sometimes recognised by some and was actually brought up by Putin recently. That, didn't defeat the German... Well, Russia didn't defeat the German war machine on their own. And China has not got the industrial capacity to back them, nor the willingness to completely back them. Russia has expressed its frustration recently at China for being treated as a junior partner, and Xi threw 45 big contracts at Russia, but those are just appeasement. China does not want partners, they want subjects. And the sooner people realise that Imperial China is Communist China, Communist China is pretty much everything it claimed Imperial China was, the better. Right? Communism is just slavery with extra steps, extra layers of chocolate sprinkled crap. A little bump here and there in the map, not necessarily. I think this was yesterday, but it might be necessary to point out that some reports had the Russians up the middle between these two and advancing, but it could actually be sometimes when they say the Russians are advancing on, it might mean that the Russians were previously attacked, the Ukrainians didn't rush in, because there is actually a gap between the two, right? It's not like they're face to face and then decide to start a punch-up match. There's hundreds of meters between the two. So these lines are not going to be exact where they are every day. Sometimes the Russians do retreat to second and third line trenches when shelled, and then they come back and shell and backwards and forwards. If troops stay too long in the one position, they are likely to die, so they do move about. Now, forces are pressing north on Mishka. Now, forces are engaged, have begun operations simultaneously across the whole Ivanilia? That's Ivaninka's. There's a few towns the same name, but okay. It is pretty much the Konsakovia front, although, they're engaged there. Now, there's been some growth, but not much. Technically, Boshestok hasn't fallen, but it's practically fallen. A little bit of advance here, not much gained, though, however. But it is slowly, probably, to bring up guns, not on here, but on here. The supply depots and supply lines that run along here. that were also running along here. That's why they Russian forces came up through here in the first place, to split these two lines. Now, they are pressing on 1, 2, 3, but they're not directly going for Dubinilia, they're going for the supply lines on this road. So come down this road and start splitting off into here, splitting off into here. But remember, there's multiple supply lines all at once. They're not going to have a single supply line that they rely on. But eventually they will. Now, as I said, the Russians will advance, trying to force the Ukrainians, and the most easiest way is to force them up this road. So that's what they're doing. Keeping this road open as a Ukrainian, to pressure the Ukrainians out. Now you hear about the Pavos front. Does not mean the Russians are being kicked out of Pavlovsk or Pavlovsk has fallen to the Ukrainians. I don't know where people get that from. But again, people aren't paying attention. They just want, and instead of learning, they want validation. So here and here and here, there's going to be some push trying to get the Ukrainians out of these fields while they begin operations to lay siege to here from 2 points. It seems Russia does build-ups, again, because they don't have America's supplies behind them. And the rest of the world just can't match the industrial might. Even Europe and Russia, Europe can't meet Russia's industrial might. And they're a third-tier industrial power. They were second-tier. They were more powerful 27 years ago. The fall of communism saw so many leave that Europe thought they had won. America thought, the America Code was the end of communism and the communist threat to Europe. But Europe never gave up that Russia's a threat. And so now, we now see, 5,000 troops from Germany shifted to Poland, though 10,000 are coming home overall. Now, as we see, this what they call stabilization operations, there's not many conflicts going on in these areas outside of this little area here and this little area here, which includes Zaporozhye. Zaporozhye is a series of airstrikes on Ukrainian positions who feed into the front here, and ongoing operations. This town is a backwards and forwards. There's been backwards and forwards here for 6 weeks now. Nothing really of consequence ever comes of it. Ukrainians will come in, they'll lose a couple of hundred, the Russians will pull back, and then the Russians will kill a few more hundred Ukrainians, the Ukrainians will push back, and the cycle continues. Now, there's been a few more hits on Ukraine. Kryvyi, ongoing cross-border artillery at Kherson, cross-river, Dnipro. Now, this is attacks on the riverboats. 84 drones, according to Ukrainian Air Force. But according to Pravda, it was over 100. Just a reminder that this channel is sponsored by you, the viewing audience. Check out my Shopify at Empire Valves. That's one word, Empire Valves, by Shopify.com. Links in the description below. based on my book series, Step into the Magical World of the Empire of Elves, where science and technology meet fantasy, hope and wonder. Now, see, over 100 drones, yet Live Map says it was only 82. Again, it could be just the time of day, so it's neither here nor there, because they're not going to tell us where they hit anyway. But we have the 108 million Hawk equipment sale to Ukraine. Ukraine's been bleating about this deal for the last 2 weeks, saying, no, Ukraine, America's not going to help Ukraine, they're not going to approve our sales. No, they go through the regular process like every other country. When your order it goes into a queue, you're not getting special treatment and you're having a hissy fit, but the State Department was never going to turn it down. Remember, the foreign policy of the United States is they are improving the security of a partner country for the long-term political and economic stability in Europe, but they are not going to give Ukraine special treatment like Europe does, and that's why Ukraine has a hissy fit. Now, the Hawk is making a slight difference, and it's one of the reasons why Russia has no air superiority over Ukraine. Now, Russia makes fun of the US losing aircraft in Iran, predominantly drones. But remember, Russia's not over, or rarely over, I should say, over Ukraine. And when they are, it's usually fast-moving stealths, and they at high or flying at very high altitude, and they're launching and retreating. They're not engaged in long-term direct operations. So, pot meet kettle, It ain't, not... I don't like when Russia engages in bravado. They should should give up that bad habit. But it's a bad habit humans have. I mean, Ukraine puffs their chest too, so, yeah. Russia is claiming that globalists in Europe are hampering Trump's peace effort. The Russians hammered out a deal. Europeans are against it. But more and more, as people see what's happening globally, Russia's not falling for the, the bait to increase operations in Ukraine, to trigger bullshit article the Ukrainians supposedly have the deal with Europe. Look, more Russian troops, they're going to attack Europe. And Europe will go, oh no, we're going to send in the Germans. And then they'll fail, or Poland and Germany and Romania will go in, and that will escalate things. And Russia will say, oh, you'll cross that red line and we'll have to use tacticals. And they'll go, yeah, I dare you to. Just like Zelensky dared the Russians to protect the people of Donetsk from his security forces and their special security operation, which is why Russia called it a special security operation. Now, he promised peace and delivered war. He's clinging to power under the guise of martial law. Same old corruption over and over again. Ukrainian police, nothing in Ukraine, right? Ukrainian citizens for 28 years have seen all their prosperity funneled to the same handful of people, and no matter who they elect, they all end up working for the same handful of people. A diverse nation of diverse corruption with 28 years of opportunities, kickbacks, and cash flows, and the pillaging of wealth by Ukrainian successive politicians. Zelensky's perpetuating this very corruption that he ran against. There has been no significant player arrested. Yes, they confiscated some property of Zelensky and turned it into state media. But he did that with all Ukraine media. Other than that, he's prepared to lose his popularity, his approval, if necessary, to bring peace, or so he claimed, but he is not. There he is giving the Roman salute. And he's not Ukrainian, by the way. He's an ethnic Russian who does not, until last 2 years, speak. He didn't, he was elected reading lines. He did not understand the words he was saying. This is the problem. He's an actor. He learnt Ukrainian formally in a crash course with the US Army about 2 years ago. They made a big deal of it, that he could converse in Ukrainian with Ukrainians. Because in the past, they were all learnt lines. This is why the New World Order likes actors, because they're malleable, not ideological. The only ideology they have is bootlicking. That's right. Now, Sweden has taken another dumbass position in which they wish to escalate the Ukrainian war by direct involvement by directing Ukrainian drones in order to provoke an attack on Sweden by Moscow to trigger Article whatever they want to trigger in order to... I do know it's Article 5, but I call it the Article whatever because it's not really an article of... It's a excuse to go to war because they've written themselves control with all these articles over your country. Europe is not an independent nation, it's an empire that was dreamed upon by the Liechtenstein mafia, who then funded the first person who promised them to enact a unified Europe, the little mustache man, and since then, and yes, the unified Europe was all the way to the Urals. Remember that? Remember the goal of Barbarossa was unify Europe from the Urals to the English Channel. And a lot of politicians in many countries were all for that, which is what the real blackmail has been going on for the last 70 years, has been blackmailing all those people and organisations that are involved in creating the EU. And yes, they took all the little mustache men and made them and blackmailed them, and some commies too, like Merkel, into supporting the EU. Merkel didn't like the EU, apparently, although she's going to love it, apparently. Again, they love people whose ideologies are malleable, because most of the WEF are more about practical, right, than political. They just want the most expedient methods, the most efficient methods to power. And Ukraine is one of them. Plunge Ukraine into war is easy. A bunch of angry people point their anger at Russia, blame the pro-Russian governments for the corruption, when it's the same entrenched people who are doing the pointing and the claiming that are the real corruption. We tried to do this in Australia to end political influence by breaking up the media. It hadn't worked. You just shift power. They'll just find a new way, right? They shift from radio to television to now podcasting. And how are you going to break up podcasting? No one's competing with YouTube on the same level. Or got $1 billion a year to funnel. Sorry, it's now $1 billion a month to funnel into a platform. And so, how are you going to end the Ukraine war if you don't have voices out there trying to end the Ukraine war? Well, what do? They tried direct negotiation. Why? Because the people of Europe have got no power. If America was that much against the Ukraine war, they'd be funding lots of voices I'm not saying I'm funded, I'm just saying what they should do is fund. But no, all the voices they fund are not so much Ukraine war. And of course, everyone's focused on the Middle East or, turning against Israel. So you have pretty much Ukraine predominantly spaced but with pro-Ukrainian voices echoing the pro-Ukrainian parliament because they want to do the same, right? They want to erase independence of nations and nationhood. They claim it's to stop the Nazis, but it's not. It's just about power. And the moment you realise that everything they say is nothing but manipulation and lies, either by half-truths or straight-up propaganda, you'll realise the EU is just one big bureaucratic mess of people who should have no power, half of them should be in jail for theft, but they legalise it through committees and investigations and bonus payments and performance payments and security. Everyone else has to make do with one pay. European politicians have at least 3 pays. They have travel allowances, meal allowances, wine allowances. They have special hotels, special rates, subsidies, committee payments on top of their regular salary. It's so much corruption. And you look at how rich some of them are, Merkel, and so Ukraine is just an extension of that same corrupt system. Russia doesn't want Ukraine. They want Ukraine to be neutral. So they have a buffer between it. Because Russia thinks you're the ones who are planning to invade them. So thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. Please support the channel. You support me on Ko-Fi, Patreon at Future Fantasy. That's one word, Future Fantasy. I also have a second Patreon at David T. Applegate. Yeah, that's right. One word. Buy my books, buy my merch. All my links are in the link tree, description below, in my profile. Thank you for listening. See you in the next video, and bye for now.